Effie, I'm really excited to be featuring you on the YouTube channel and podcast. How's everything going?
I'm good. I'm excited to be here.
Great. So I heard you just finished your first week of law school. What's it been like so far?
Oh my gosh, it has been exhausting but exciting because it's exactly what I dreamed of, and like working towards this and actually being in a position to see it in classes and like learn from professors. Like, it's great. Orientation was exhausting. I was wiped out the very first day because our orientation ran from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., whatever, like mandatory stuff that we had to be at. But having to come into like the actual class weekend, knowing my schedule and like having to do the readings and all of that, it is a slow process, but I feel like in the next couple weeks, I will get a better hang of things. And like the whole cold calling experience, it's not as intimidating as one would expect as long as you're prepared. And it's fun if you mess up, like it's not the end of your legal career, your legal education. So yeah, it's really been exciting. Yeah.
Nice. Well, it's good for folks to hear the Socratic method technique is not quite as grueling as it's made out to be.
No, not the paper chase. So yeah, you'll be fine.
So what advice would you have for someone who, let's say, is starting law school next year?
Mm-hmm.
What would you want to know before going in first week of law school, before orientation?
I would say that you should come in prepared and ready to put in the work. Know exactly why you're here, because I know for me that it started getting exhausting even just from orientation, but remembering your why and knowing exactly what you're in this process for, because 3 years is a long time and it gets daunting not having a real thing that grounds you into the reason why you should be putting in the effort. And again, I also think that a big thing also is your mental health, like know exactly where your head is at, because even though like my experience so far has been great and the people I've surrounded myself with have been amazing, it's easy to fall into a trap of comparing yourself to other people and their experiences, and you feel like, oh, they've had all the tutoring or whatever before law school and they might have an upper hand than you do. But just knowing that this is your journey, it's a marathon, not a sprint, and take every day one day at a time, because yeah, it's going to be exhausting, but you need to pace yourself, take care of yourself, and know exactly why you're going into this. Yeah.
100%. Now, what would you say is your personal why on your journey?
My personal why, I would say it's because I'm interested in immigration. I have been around the issue for a long time, especially with my family. And so it was just something that I knew right before I came into law school that I wanted to do. It's totally fine if you don't know what you want to do, because there are so many options with the law. So yeah, it could just be for other reasons that you want to go to law school, not for like a specific thing. But yeah, no, that has been my why, and just learning that there are so many opportunities here on campus that I could start to engage in the community and like offer some assistance. It's really nice.
Well, that's amazing. I'm really glad you have that goal in mind, because we definitely need it.
Yeah, I know.
What was your application process like? Just to go back a bit earlier in your journey, what was your application cycle like? What schools did you apply to? What did you write your personal statement on?
Mm-hmm. So my application cycle started, well, I graduated in 2017 and I thought I was going to apply right away, but given the LSAT and all of that, nothing happens as planned. So I took some time off and decided to apply in 2018. So I prepared my applications starting beginning of the year. So January 2018, I was already brainstorming my personal statement ideas and what I really would like to have that look like. Got tons of people to take a look at it. Like, I mean, getting advice and feedback, it's really helpful because you don't know what you can't catch in your own writing. So having people that were in law school take a look at it, people who had graduated in just like the writing centers in my college. So I know like that's a thing where people could have access to that, just taking advantage of that resource. And then I wrote my diversity statement as well. I did a lot of, I don't know if I'll consider it networking, but I went to the law school forums in New York, and it was really nice to be able to connect with the admissions officers and like students who attended the schools and really get a sense of what it's like being in that environment, and just learning of the experiences and what they have to offer to me as a student. And I think it was really valuable for me because I remember like when I came to campus for orientation, like one of the deans of my school, he approached me and he was like, well, I remember you're from New York. And he like was listing out like my resume. He's like, well, I actually read this application. So it's really cool, like to be able to have that interaction. And like, you could also add that to your YX statements when you're writing for certain schools and be like, well, I went to this event and I was able to interact with these people, and this is what this school offers, and this is like how I think it would be a benefit to me, and like what I could offer the schools. And resumes as well. Like I tried to develop my resume throughout that gap period because I didn't have any legal experience, and I know that is not like a really big deal because people have like science backgrounds and still end up in law school, but I'm very paranoid. So I was like, let me just do something. So I volunteered at a legal organization. And so that's what I used my time for. And I thought that it was worth it. And it was something to add to my resume and like boost my application. And then the kinds of schools that I as well. So after all of that and like reviewing on all of that, I started sending applications out in, I think, September, October. I had taken the LSAT 4 times. So I had scores on record, but I had told the schools that they should wait until I received my most recent score. So I just sent out my applications without really letting them consider them until I was certain of the score that I wanted. So after all of that was done, like you just wait. And so to the schools that I applied to quite a lot of schools. In my coming, like at the end of it all, like maybe I shouldn't have, because that was like a waste of money. But also again, I was like, this is a one-time thing. I'm just going to shoot my shot and like see what happens. So I applied to places like Harvard, even though my GPA and my LSAT score is not even within that range. I applied to UCLA, NYU, Fordham, a lot of schools on the coast because that's kind of where I would like to see myself end up. And then I applied to University of Iowa because that's my alumni. Like I'm an alumni there. So I was like, why not? Who knows what's going to happen? And then I ended up back here. But it's like I applied to a ton of places. So yeah, it's like just everywhere and anywhere you think, like even though you don't think you're going to be accepted, it's worth trying. Like the worst thing that they can tell you is no. And I would rather have them tell me no than me tell myself no before even knowing that I had a chance. So yeah, just shoot your shot.
Yeah, surprises do happen sometimes. But
Yeah.
What led you to ultimately choose University of Iowa in the end?
What led me to choose the University of Iowa in the end? I was familiar with the environment. I came here for undergrad, and I knew that the community environment was something that I really enjoyed. And the program is a little bit smaller, so our current class is a class of 153, which is one of the largest in a couple years now. And so it was just great knowing that if I come here, it's going to be less expensive than having to go to a place in New York and other options that I had, and scholarship opportunities, which I would highly suggest that even though you don't get it, ask for it and see what happens. And then what else? I spoke to lots of people that had attended the school, and just the ability for me to get out of Iowa after I graduate, because I don't really see myself in the Midwest afterwards. So it was nice hearing that there were opportunities for me to explore like California, New York, and not be restricted to just the Midwest. So I think those were my main reasons for choosing Iowa.
Makes a lot of sense if you're familiar with it, but you still have potential to go elsewhere afterwards.
Right.
Why not? I want to circle back to something you mentioned earlier about the LSAC law school forums. I'm wondering, you said that they remembered you months later, they remembered unique details about you. Obviously they're meeting hundreds of people, or if not thousands, that weekend. What do you think it was that made you stand out at that forum? Is there something you did differently or something you mentioned?
I feel like just being genuine and just being yourself, because that speaks a lot more than you trying to fit a system or this box. Because my conversation was very basic, like just talking about my experience, like undergrad, and like having familiarity with the professors or like what the school offers, and just being knowledgeable about what I could get out of my experience, and just asking questions that were sort of, I guess, intelligent. I mean, I don't know how much of an intelligent question you can get out of like somebody who's just who doesn't know what's happening, but like you're just eager to learn. And so I think it was the fact that I was just eager to learn. And I remember him like saying something about, like, I think we had our conversation going on for like at least like 30 minutes. And then I was like, okay, last question. And he was like, well, you just told me last question like a couple of minutes ago. Like, are you sure? So it was just like, just being myself and like just eager to like express interest in the school. And I think that really stood out to him. But yeah.
So there's a certain authenticity there. And also you're having a 30-minute conversation with them. I would imagine most applicants aren't having such in-depth conversations at those forums. They might be looking to visit as many tables as possible, just check off the boxes, fill in their name, but you actually went deep with them. And that's a certain level of demonstrated interest.
Yeah, and I think it's because I knew beforehand the schools that I wanted to take a look at. And so I had looked at their websites, tried to see what they had, and like tried to think of what questions would I like to have answered that I could input in my YX essays. And like there's several of them. I mean, like I asked questions that were relevant to the application, but just more about what the school had to offer in a grand sense that I don't think any other place would have offered, and just like learning more about the school.
Wow. Well, those are definitely some great insights there, F.A. Really appreciate your taking the time. Now, I know that you're sharing more about your law school journey on your YouTube channel, Esquire. What do you plan to be covering in the future?
Yeah.
Anything particular you plan to be covering there in the future?
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to like find my footing in law school and like really figure out my schedule. But very soon, like I know that I really want to share my like study routines with my audience and like take them on like a day in the life of a law student and just see the insights. I mean, like, I know I won't be able to cover like the classroom experience because it's not like video recordings aren't allowed, but just also share how like the ups and the downs of law school, because it's probably not going to be really all exciting and like, oh, this is just the first time, you know, like this is what I've wanted. So it's still a little bit of a high, but I know that in the middle of the semester when things get really intense, it's probably not going to be exciting. I also want to be able to share that just to show like authenticity and know that, well, like it's going to be hard still, but you're going to survive.
Well, I'm sure folks are definitely going to want to check that out and just follow you on your journey, whether it's exciting or not. Those who want to go to law school will find it interesting to just get a taste of what it's going to be like. So I'll be sure to link to your channel, Esquire, in the description box. And F.A., I want to thank you again for sharing your advice with my audience today.
Thank you for having me.